So as we continue that discussion when it comes to Benjamin Sesko and Manchester United, with Rob in the studio with us now, we understand at this moment in time that Sesko's preference is to join Manchester United over a potential move to Newcastle. Can you understand why he's been drawn to United?
It's interesting considering Manchester United finished 15th. No, obviously, European football this season, and Newcastle do. And they do have Champions League. So that's a real, almost kind of balance because, you know, a lot of players, they look at the history of the club, the size of the club, huge. Both are big. But in terms of global status, of course, Manchester United are a bigger club. But it's an interesting choice because if he has the both of them on the table and he's sitting down and trying to choose, it might come down to literally the difference between who's kind of discussing the projects with him. Manchester United look as if everything's going to be refreshed this season. The manager is clearly at the forefront of that recruitment. And it's very interesting. So, yes, I can understand him if he goes to Manchester United because the size of the club is huge. And also maybe he could be seen as a bit of a hero in terms of, yes, Cunha, Mbomo, Fernandes, the players that are there. He comes in, Sesko comes in, scores goals, takes them to European football, takes them to way higher up in let's call it the top six, and then maybe Champions League, maybe European football. That is the start of this new Manchester United. Sometimes the project of being fresh, new, and also being part of that, I think is also huge. But also because it's the size of the club, it's Manchester United. And I think that's how Manchester United are putting it. The other thing about the stadium is kind of long-term, because I think that's kind of part of the project, but it's years away. You know, it's far from anywhere near completion.
Manchester United would have had a list of potential strikers they were looking to sign this summer. Very high up that list was Ollie Watkins. Can you understand why they've opted against somebody with Premier League experience who maybe would have been cheaper, although he's nearly 30, over a player? Well, they've gone for a younger player with a high ceiling, but Watkins could have come in and maybe delivered straight away.
Yeah, well, listen, Ollie Watkins, I love Ollie Watkins. I think he's quality. I think he brings goals. I think he brings assists. He brings this real energy to be able to, you know, pop into little holes on the pitch, but also be able to stretch the team. You know, he'll be the first to be put through on goal for a 1v1. So I think that kind of fits with Manchester United. But I think age kind of goes towards this, you know, because Manchester United will be looking at that and maybe thinking, okay, he's nearly 30. This player's 22. Okay, the next stage, what level are they? Do we believe Sesko will hit the same levels as Ollie Watkins in the next few years? Okay, maybe he puts him up. And then it is obviously down to longevity. You know, if we give this guy a 4 or 5 year contract, he's our long-term project. Ollie Watkins might not be that. But I would be very surprised if Manchester United haven't looked at Ollie Watkins and at least had the conversation and at least had the discussion of, would you be interested? Because let's rewind back 6 months. There was the discussion of Ollie Watkins going to Arsenal, and he was very interested. So I would assume Ollie Watkins would also be very interested in Manchester United, but maybe it just doesn't fit right now, and that's why. But I think Sesko is a very, very good option. You know, when I look at him and I look at what he can bring to Manchester United, and also bring to Mbomo, Fernandes, Cunha. He's very different to those. You know, he's much more of a goal scorer in terms of in that way, but also I think they kind of look at him as this long-term project rather than Watkins. That's the main factor.
Well, a long-term project was Rasmus Højlund, who came in 2 years ago. Would you have sympathy for him if Benjamin Sesko comes in? Because Højlund's had to lead the line for 2 years at a very young age. Clearly, with United not being in Europe next season, there's going to be limited minutes for him if Sesko does come in.
What is Højlund? 22?
22.
Yeah, 22, going 23. For me, that's not young. I think maybe when he first came in, that first 6 months, 8 months, yeah, okay, he's young, everything's fresh, get used to everything. But after that, to be honest, The bottom line is he's not been good enough, and he's not delivered, and he's had the opportunities because, you know, who else has it been? He's had chances to be in that team. There is moments with Højlund where I've looked at him and I think, that's quality. That's a great finish. And then you don't see it for 10 games. That's a big problem. Didn't score enough goals last season. And Manchester United, right now, they're looking at players, and they've had, 8 months or so to look at the players that are currently there and say, are these the players that take us forward? Or are these the players that kind of just stabilize the club? I think they're looking at the players that they can't see past the next 2 years. They're slowly, maybe that is Højlund. He fits into that he doesn't fit in the next couple of years. So it's the time for him to move on. They're clearly looking at it because Sesko's coming in. So if he is coming in, there's a reason for that, is because things have not been good enough.